Hey guys and girls, and this week's podcast I'm joined by my friend Simon Hall, who I've known for over 8 years. Now this is a great episode, in fact one of my favourites so far, and we talk everything from mental resilience to stepping out your comfort zone to being vulnerable and how to upgrade your mindset. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, but go away and enjoy.
First of all, Simon, where in the world are you right now, and what are you up to?
So current buddy, I've been making my way around the world pretty much for the past couple of years. So right now I'm actually over in Bali, which obviously we've got the world apocalypse going down right now. But if you throw the coronavirus in with an earthquake and a volcano eruption and tsunami warnings, that's been my situation for the past 2 weeks. So it's great.
Well, you love a challenge. You love a challenge and an adventure anyway, don't you?
Yeah, I love it. I'm embracing it, mate. I'm learning a lot about myself.
So, obviously, for people that don't know you, Simon, just explain a little bit about yourself, like how you've got into running your own business, how you've got into running your own successful podcast. If people don't know about your story and who you are, can you just explain a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, so I'll make this short. My story's got lots of different strains to it, but effectively I was high-level gymnast, came away from that an absolute mess. There's lots of different parts to my story, but effectively like coming away from an athlete identity completely destroyed me. So I only realize this now being able to look back, but at the time coming away from, I think it was 16 years of 7-hour days, 7 days a week training was pretty much everything that who I was at the core level, my social circle. So actually stepping away from that was a lot harder than what I thought at the time. But basically after that, I got a little bit lost, didn't really know what to do with my life. Went to college, walked out of college like twice. So yeah. Just as academia for me, just wasn't my thing, like learning and all that sort of stuff, because I didn't know what I want to do. And for me, I'm kind of an all in or all out person. And because I didn't really have a why or a purpose as to where I was going to go, I really struggled to direct my energy. But basically, what happened from that, a bit of a family event happened where my granddad passed. Because of my years of being a child, growing up through the gymnastic ranks, it was stressful for my family. So I basically grew up a lot with my grandparents. So I was very, very close to my grandfather and my grandmother. I still am to my grandmother, but my grandfather sadly passed away. And at the time, someone very early in my career, one of my first mentors, were probably not the thing you want to tell someone where their grandparents died, but it was something that triggered something in me. He was like, look, if your grandfather would have got on top of like his health and the way he lived, he wouldn't have gone that way. Which now when I think back, I'm like, who says that? But that happened. And that basically set me off. So from that, I then wanted to get into the health thing, and that's what brought me into the fitness world. Did I really know at that time what I wanted to do fully with my life? Not necessarily. But still, I just went ahead with it. So I went into the personal training world, and I won't lie, I found we were good at it. Like we did really, really well in like the whole personal training thing. I don't know what it was, but it just happened straight away. So I worked for a company at the time. And then what happened is I basically got split. So we had 2 clienteles that were full. And then it ended up to a point where in that business, we had a 2-year waiting list. We were the highest priced in like Lancashire, Northwest, and we still had a waiting list. I was like, what is it? What are we doing that is doing this? And I realized something. It was because we were addressing more than just nutrition, more than just health. We were helping people, actually coaching people. And for me, my missions in life were like, how do we change someone's life and how do we help as many people in the world as we can? And that's always been my biggest driver in anything that I've done. But for me, I learned this lesson early, but I didn't act on it. So as a one-on-one FaceTime personal trainer, you can only really go to group semi-privates, and then after that you pretty much become a class instructor, which was just not an option. So for me, we had this waiting list of people who were desperate for our help. In my eyes, they were desperate to have their lives changed, and we couldn't service them. So it destroyed me from a person who was going into the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and leaving like 10 o'clock at night. I was destroyed. I was sacrificing myself. My own health was gone. My mental health, when I look back, was all over the show. And like, I was that kid who was like the personal trainer at the time. I was young, naive. You'd see me busting my ass off, do you know what I mean? Working towards all these amazing goals. But then at the weekend, you'd find me blackout drunk, escapism in a bar kind of thing. Like, do you know what I mean? So I was very contrastical at that point, and I was sacrificing myself so much. Like, I was just completely lost what I was doing. But in short, again, ended up going into the online world. So I realized suddenly there was a model there which could be approached if we adopted that, which then immediately we moved the 2-year of waiting list. And then the majority of our one-on-one clients actually wanted the online support because it was another thing that they could get value from. So that then happened. We blew up a company very quick called Body Composition Coaching, which was one of the early adoptions when Facebook was there. Like, we can sit here if you want to go into business chat, like in sales funnels and all that sort of stuff. But effectively, we blew up that business with an advert and a PDF downloadable, which is just unheard of. But that's how it happened. But that happened. I was very young again at those ages. It was the first business I ever built, and it grew too quick. Like it was just a monster. And I won't lie, I struggled with it. I learned a lot of lessons. There was a lot of successes and there was a lot of hardships. I learned a lot about team. I learned a lot about myself as a leader, like how I communicate with people and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, effectively, I stepped away from that. I decided, look, this isn't what I want to do in my life. This isn't the direction. I don't want, as much as I love helping people, the fitness industry wasn't the model. Like, I'm a strong believer that people have a goal, like they want to achieve in life, but the variable of how they can do it can always change, but it'll still get there. For me, I've always been a speaker, a communicator, and I think this is why it was the success of the podcast and what we were saying. I've always known at some core level I should have been doing that, but I was I was too goddamn scared to go and do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that happened. So in short, I can just save this whole story and waffling on. But basically now what I've done is there's a few investments that we've made. We've done, we're obviously in the process of building the Nourish Group, which will obviously hit in the next year. So me and biting off a bit more than I can chew is something that's always followed me in life. So building one brand is hard, but when you're trying to build one brand of 7 sub-brands and businesses at the same time, that's considerably hard. I thought I could do it in 6 months. Nope. Could not. So, and then obviously coronavirus hits when we start to launch 2 of them. So that's fun. That's been a fun challenge of readopting a launch strategy. But in short, that's where I am at the minute. And then the podcast, I literally went through this whole period where I took a bit of a sabbatical, went all in on that. And that's how I am where I am today. And I enjoy it.
Well, obviously, Simon, for you as well, that must have been quite a difficult thing to actually step away from your identity of being a personal trainer and being in fitness, to actually step out and go, right, I'm going to develop a new version of me. I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to build this business. I'm going to build this passion. I'm going to build this podcast. And there'll be a lot of people listening to this right now going, I'm in this fear. I'm in this panic. I'm in this anxiety. How do I get the courage, or how do I get the balls to actually go and do that? Like, what was your first steps of stepping away from who you actually was? Because that was you for 8 to 10 years or whatever, wasn't it? And that's how we knew each other from 6 years ago at M10. I think it was 7 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, more, if anything, mate. Yeah. But dude, that's a beautiful question. I've never been asked that. I like it. That whole identity thing has followed me throughout life. My hardest time as the gymnast, it was there. Again, as the business owner, it was that. The best thing I can say is you always know, like how, like I study a lot of peak performance, and I'd like to think that I'm kind of there at some degree. But I think why was I escaping so much? I was avoiding things. Like, why would you find me on a Saturday or Sunday hammering like quad VODs and stuff like that? I was escaping something. If I look at those things, every time I've gone into suppression mode or escapism or something along the lines of that, it's because I've known there's something I needed to do. I've just been scared of doing it. The business, it was my ego. I was young. I'd blown up on media with it, and to let go of something that was you, do you know what I mean? It's hard to do. So it was coming to terms with, I'm really not happy with this. I do not want to do this for the next version of my life. There's more that I can be doing out in the world, and I'm not doing it. So I had to make what I wanted to do inspire me more than the things that kept me letting go, like holding on. And when you look at like anxiety, panic, stress, and a lot of things, it's either going to be two things. You don't know what it is where you're going towards. So you've got this like fear of the unknown. And then it's also like, you've got the fear of the unknown and what lies ahead, which is scary in itself because you've got nothing safe to jump at. You've just got to take the risk. And then it's also like the fear of what will people think of me? What will happen if I fail? What will like all the people who I've worked with? And so I think that's the thing. But when you actually study like identity and stuff like that, like every day you have the choice to be a different person. It's just you courageously step forward into like it's decisions. Study successful people, they make that decision quick. The stressful points in my life have been when I've known for years what I should have done, but I never did it. But as soon as you make the decision, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a rebirth. And that was it. And that's been the story. It's happened 2-3 times in my life. And I see it in so many people. You see it, let's take, for example, fat loss. Fat loss means you've got to change your identity. If you're the fat guy, no, that's horrible language. If you're, do you know what I mean? If you're the jolly, if you're the jolly guy, do you know the jolly one that's always having the laughs and the one that can do 18 pints, that's your identity. You go into the bar, everyone expects that of you. Everyone. And like suddenly if Steve isn't performing at how he does, then people don't like that. So, you know what I mean? As soon as you decide to change, you've got all these different things that follow it.
100%. You've got all these challenges, haven't you? And people are always going to challenge that change. And that's the most scary thing for a lot of people is to actually step away and actually focus on themselves, be courageous. I mean, have you got any routines that really help you? Like something that's always been your anchor or your go-to to be like, look, I've got to change my state of mind. I've got to put myself in a good position every day. I know who I want to come. These are the things I've got to put in place. Have you got anything to that that's really worked for you or really helped you?
Yeah, I got tons, absolutely tons. Okay. I think first things first, people have to find like the biggest thing, like, dude, I used to be so closed and you knew me at the time when I was very closed as well. And I think maybe we've had the same story as well, but there's a point in my life where if you mentioned yoga, breath work, journaling, and all of these tools, I would have laughed at you in the face and judged you. Like my ego would have attacked you, period. But like for me, the biggest thing first I say to people is if you know that something needs to happen, you need to be really like clear on it. So I think first it's just finding a practice. It doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be yoga, but it's find something where you can get inside your own head and you can clear out the distractions. Like the biggest relationship that we need is a relationship with ourselves. But no one, like when you're very early in that process, you've drowned out your voice, just like I was. I was drinking. I was doing all these things, binge watching Netflix because I didn't want to face my thoughts. So I think the initial point for someone is just to like go and spend time doing that. I mean, I went to the extreme of going living with Buddhist monks in Thailand.
How was that?
That was fun. That was life changing. I think that's one of the biggest things that was like, you know what, this
really
everything changed. That was my permission slip that things can change. But for me, I went and studied like those different cultures. That's why I've been on this little world adventure thing. But that's the biggest thing. Like it's all well and true, but if you're a person that's still very close to it, like just like for me, the biggest practice I've done and still do is 20 minutes as soon as I wake up. I'm not going to lie. I'm not the guy who's like, don't go on your phone, because for me, I'll still go on it. Like I'll have a look, but effectively what I'll do is I'll just sit there. I'll just have a coffee, and for 10 or 20 minutes, I'll put a pen just in front of me if anything comes up. And I just think, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing right now? What's my intention? Where am I going in life? Like, is there relationships that I need to grow? Is the people I need to contact? The biggest thing I found from doing this is a should-have list. Your should-have list, like whenever you are like, I should have done this, that is the shit you need to do to move yourself forwards. Yeah. Period. So whenever I'm like, I should have done this, write it down. Just straight away. And then that's the practice. I get clear on my day. I get clear on when I'm going. And I think that's been the one thing that even though I was closed, it wasn't meditation, it wasn't anything, but it was just being still enough to hear myself. No distractions. And I'm not going to lie, I struggled to do that. For me, you would have known me again when I was full on war mode. Like me sitting still, I would have had about 5 coffees before I sat still. And then I suddenly realized that was something I was doing. I was getting so jacked up, like I couldn't focus. So it was just mastering being still was point number one. And I think that's a big thing for so many people is like, what is the relationship like with yourself? Like, are you okay in your own thoughts? And then kind of like work yourself back from that. Meditation practices doesn't have to be meditation. For me, it can be surfing. It can be going out on a mountain bike. It's something that grounds me and clears me. Journaling's a big thing, just like I was saying. That's a big practice I use. At night, I'll do my should-have list. Hopefully there is nothing, but there still is things on my should-have list. Yep. So if I can act on them, I'll act on them quick before I go to sleep or X, Y, Z, or just make a note for the morning. Your should-have list is always your to-do list, period. I think if there's something I've learned from my own thing, it's that the things that you're should-having are always the biggest things that are going to give you biggest growth. Hence the podcast, hence leaving the job, hence ditching a business. They were the top of the should-have list, but never got actioned on. But they were always the big springboards of growth.
I love that because obviously everything that I speak about with my clients as well is creating that some form of stillness every day and is creating that sense of awareness because like what we just spoke about before we start this podcast, we work with guys and a lot of guys struggle to open up, struggle to, they don't want to, their ego kicks in. They don't want to write shit down. They don't want to be aware of the thoughts or their feelings or their emotions. And actually having that time, we haven't got to go straight into meditation, haven't got to go straight into yoga or anything like that, but just being aware of your thoughts and actually writing shit down, having that clarity and actually objectively looking at it just helps you so damn much. And for me, like everything that's happened with business, with myself, I used to be really scrappy at the start. And I was like, look, I can't do this. I can't be anxious. I can't be fearful all the time. How do I take control? And this for me was like a form of therapy where I could actually look, okay, I see what's going off here. And every time I did it, I felt a little bit better. And that's why I love what you said, because I try and encourage every single one of my guys, don't worry about anyone else. Just focus on you and put this shit down and you'll feel better.
I just want to touch up on something. You mentioned the word ego. I think for a lot of people, especially me, it's actually recognizing that the ego is actually it's running your life, period. And effectively it's ruining it because effectively the things that you probably closed off from the most are probably stopping you from the things that you want to get. I know in guys, like their egos will protect them from going speaking to the girl at the bar. When deep down, I know that most guys just want a girl to actually see them, to be vulnerable around, be safe. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's the same, but why is that happening? Your ego is protecting the identity of who you what's working for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think as soon as you can start to view things from that, like that's when you get it. Your ego is a fear mechanism. Like being closed is just, it's like putting a brick wall up against where you want to go. And I've been there. I think you've been there. I think the majority of people in the fitness industry have been there. So do you know what I mean? I think that's quite a powerful thing, what you mentioned, but it doesn't necessarily mean going and jumping into these things full force. It could just be doing one little thing, like just sitting and being still to kind of get your foot through the door.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love, because usually everyone thinks you need to go 3,000 miles an hour. Nobody wants to sit with their thoughts. Nobody wants to sit with journaling. Nobody wants to sit with that. So creating some form of stillness every day gives you more awareness, allows you to take control. And that's the biggest thing that I give my guys, because they'll be struggling right now. And there'll be a lot of people right now in this anxiety, in this fear, in this panic, and they'll think they need to train 2 to 3 times a day. They'll think that they need to do more. They need to do more and more and more. And we've both been there, Simon. And it's never a case of doing more. It's a case of, like you say, exactly what you just said, just sit still. Just sit still and do the opposite. Do the opposite and just be calm, be cool, right? And get everything out of head, because there's so much right now struggling with the mental health, struggling with their mindset, struggling with the well-being. It's such a powerful tool for people to use every day. Now, Simon, you've gone from so many different extremes. So you've gone from spending time with the Buddhist monks. You have climbed mountains, right? So what do you think this experience...
I ran up a mountain, ran up.
Ran up a mountain. So what these extremes would have helped you massively. How can you put that into context? Like with the Buddhist monks, what did you get from that? What do you get? Are you always seeking the next challenge? Are you always seeking some big adventure? Like what is it for you that really appeals to you about these big adventures and being courageous?
Dude, every time like I found myself, like for me, I'm just trying to push, like, I just hope that people see this who have been in my story. But for me, I've always just trying to, like, where can I break my own either physical or mental limits? Because as soon as I do that, like, nothing is ever going to be as hard as running up Kilimanjaro, like, period. Like that has given me so much confidence. Like, why did I go and do a fight camp? Why did I go and live on a fight camp in Thailand? I was so fearful and insecure. I could never stick up for myself. And I had to get these protective social circles. So I went and did that. I went and trained for a fight. Like Buddhist monks, I couldn't sit still. I'd go and learn from experts. Like, the reason I've always gone and done these things is because, like, you go and learn from the best people. Like, if you can take this advice, but if you can go and do it, go and do it. And I think it's more as well, like, the experience of doing it it's really made me understand why and how to do it properly. And I was speaking to the guy who we've just had on our show about this, like, meditation. I used to think for about 2-3 years, I used to, like, meditate. I used to listen to it all and all that sort of stuff. But actually going and doing it with people that actually do meditate, I was never doing it. Never did it. So I basically did 3 years of just having my eyes shut. And then when you actually go and spend it and learn from people that do it for the life, you're like, oh, I get it now. Like, this is what it is. But do you know what I mean? That's just what it is. So for me, I've not done anything stupid this year. This year's been a bit of a recoil. Obviously the world decided to fall to shit. So it's like, by anything, it's just happened as a challenge anyway. Probably more than, so it's actually ended up as a challenge without meaning to be. But that's basically it, mate. I've just always found that when I've been challenged, it's grown me, it's taught me, and it's given me, I can speak to people, like, people can connect and they can hear the stories, and you can speak from a place of certainty because you've done it.
I think, and because you keep smashing through these obstacles, it builds up your confidence and your belief, and that carryover into every single aspect of your life must be massive. So carrying over into starting a podcast, carry over into growing and pushing your business, carry over into taking yourself to another challenge. And obviously we spoke before this podcast a little bit about peak performance. And for you, because you're doing that, you're living that, you're being a role model and a leader in that you can authentically say, hey, I'm doing this shit. I understand the impact that this can have to you, to your confidence. And I think that's such an important thing for people that are stuck right now, that want to see the way out. And I think that by you doing that, you're showing them the way. You're showing them, look, we've got this obstacle. You smash it, bam, you're going to get the reward off of it.
Exactly that. Exactly that. It's leadership, isn't it? Just lead the way.
100%. Do you think that, I just want to go back a little bit as well, to when you said about you, obviously you was a high-level gymnast, right? And do you think that because you've trained so much and because you work so hard at that, do you think that discipline, that you being brave with doing gymnastics and having that set routine, do you think that's actually set you up later in life for what you're doing? Or do you think, how do you think that has set you up?
Do you know what, Danny? Like, I wish it did. I wish the carryover I got from that was the discipline. Like, honestly, like, let me just reverse engineer this, right? I think the reason I was so disciplined was because I had a massive goal. Olympics was the goal. Yep. So discipline came as the byproduct of focus. This is exactly correct in what I'm saying as well. And then it never crossed over because only, like, for example, when I've had the business or I've had something to really kind of like go all in at, then the discipline has followed. And this is why I think goal setting is such a big, important thing. But my danger is this, and you see it a lot in businessmen, you see it a lot in high-level CEOs, is being aware of that. Because if that's your kind of thing, like mine is, it's very easy to become two-dimensional, which, for example, let's take the photo shoots, or let's take a certain goal. Like, if that's your sole focus and you're sole disciplined, your peripheral vision, you're losing focus from relationships, from different areas of your life. So for me, it was the biggest thing with discipline came when I painted the full goal and the full picture of how I want my life to be, and not just one individual area. And I think that's a big thing. Is I think with a 2-dimensional goal will become 2-dimensional discipline, and I think you'll lose a lot of focus from other areas of your life which are really important to you. I think once you know like what all of the areas which are really important to you, you give them all purpose, you give them all a meaning, you give them all a KPI to know that they're doing well. I think then discipline will follow. And I think this is why once I've done this, journaling is very easy, because journaling now that I'm so clear on this, journaling is just like, are we moving forwards here? Are we moving forwards? Oh, I've not, you know what? I've really not paid attention to the girl that I've been seeing X, Y, Z. So that's now. And you can just keep yourself kind of like narrowing in on that end point.
Cool. So actually people that say, hey, like, I've tried this journaling, I've tried this meditating, I've tried this yoga, and they'll go, it just didn't work for me, or I can't stick at it. One of the reasons that it potentially could be is because they haven't got an end vision or of who they want to be or who they actually want to become. So if they actually go, hey, this is who I want to be in 6 months' time, this is who I want to be in 12 months' time, and like what you said, you reverse engineer that back, you can then start to go, oh, all right, well, this is part of the process to get me to where I need to be. Is that something that you work on with people as well, or do you encourage?
This is a brilliant question. This is absolutely brilliant, Danny. I was that guy. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't. There was a point in my life when I was like, fuck, I've walked away from a business. I just do not know what I want to do. Like, nothing is exciting me. And I'd hit a low. Like, I was like, oh, like, what is the next thing? And my honest advice, if that's your thing and you're struggling to find your purpose or what you want to go after, you've just got to go and try loads of new stuff to see what actually gets you going again. Yeah. So for me, that's what I did for that year. I just went and did everything. Like, everyone was like, you're always doing something new. And I was like, yeah, because there's a reason. I don't know what I want to do. I'm 20 years into my life. I feel lost. So I need to go and shake up the snow globe, see what pieces of gold land. And then I'm going to go all in. Travel, speaking, communicating, media. And look, like, this is my life now. And I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Wow.
But that's what I had to go and do. But I was that guy. I was in the dark cave. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It made worse. My dad brought me up. My dad's a very successful entrepreneur, so to speak. And he brought me up all through my life. Never go into businesses, partnerships, relationships, social circles, people, X, Y, Z, who don't know who they are, what they want, or where they're going. Because everything they'll do will be the clutch of a straw with no longevity. It'll be, to me, a very short-term need. But I was that person. So when I left everything, I was that person. So like, I've then got this, and then, do you know what I mean? When you're that person, I was like, oh my God, like, I can't answer these 3 questions that have been drilled into me through the 22 years of my life. But the way to find the answer is action. Go and find the things that you enjoy doing and execute on them. Could be travel, it could be a trip. But honestly, mate, like, this is really weird. And if you look at anything, like, even I'm not religious whatsoever. But the biggest pillar of everything is separation. Like, it's in the Bible, it's in every single religious structure, it's in all spiritual structures, it's in Buddhism, it's the one common correlation in everything. You've got to separate yourself from attachments. So for me, the biggest thing where I found it was actually going traveling, separating myself from my social circles, my environments. You've done a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. Joe Dispenza's got an amazing quote, which is, once you're inside the jam jar, you can't read the label. And the label is usually what gives you that identity. So for me, I had to literally just go, boom, I'm folding all of this. I'm going to go and separate from all of this. And it came. And that was it. Do you know what I mean? It was just slowly stepping into the things that I enjoyed, where I was able to rebuild that up. And then once I'd got that now, hence the podcast, the discipline came very easily. Media, the discipline, and now we're helping people. The goal has always stayed the same from body composition coaching, but the modality has drastically changed, and it's allowed us to help more people.
So right now, so you've got this right, we're at this point. How are you going to keep going forward? Because sometimes, like, we've both been in this position, you hit a point where you're doing pretty well, and you're happy, you're comfortable, you go, this is cool. And you can let your standards slip, right? So what are you how do you keep yourself moving forward? Like, have you got like a routine that gives you even more control when you're uncertain and when you're fearful? What do you do to keep push yourself? Once you hit that first mountain peak, how do you do another one? Like, because a lot of people hit that first mountain and they'll be like, this is cool, I'm happy. But they don't push themselves that second or that third or the fourth. What do you think helps you to do that, move you forward?
Yeah, this again, great question. I think first things first is to realize what you're chasing after. So for me, there's been a lot of goals in my life when I've been chasing them for the wrong reasons. And there's nothing worse than climbing a mountain, quite literally, to realize you've climbed the wrong mountain and achieved the wrong goal. I've done this, but I think you've got to like always ask yourself why you're chasing a goal. And I think this is a really important thing when it does come down to goal setting. Why are you doing it? For me, at one point in my life, it was from the validation of others. So I was never going to get what I wanted from it. And so I was constantly going after these bigger and bigger and bigger goals, feeling less and less and less and less. And I think that's point number one is once you kind of know the thing that you need to be going in on, the natural progression is always the next step up. Does that make sense? So the next step for us now is how do we get onto more media? Like I've now done the physical goals and I got this from it. Do I want to put myself through something like that again? Or is there another area which I want to go and do? And I think once you get that perspective and you realize why you're doing the things that you're doing, it makes that whole decision process a lot easier. I hope that's answered that.
Yeah, of course, mate. I think because you have got such good self-awareness, because you've obviously got this self-confidence now of achieving so much different things, I think you have got a great awareness in yourself as well. And I think that's where a lot of people really need the help. They need that self-awareness. So actually to build in some routines, to build in some structure is going to help them massive. And actually, even if it just means starting super, super small and just achieving one little thing will massively build up the belief and the confidence. We spoke, Simon, and actually a year ago, you told me, Danny, start your podcast, right? Danny, start your podcast. And we was in Cyprus.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah. And it's took me a year to kind of get going, right? And I thought, I can remember this in December. I thought, well, how can I get this podcast going?
My question, Danny, is this. When did you buy your microphone?
Do you know what? I actually bought my microphone last year, right? And then I was like, this is cool. I bought my microphone. That's it. I'm going to do it. And it never happened. And I was like, right, how can I bridge that gap? It's exactly the same when we're working with a client for transformation. They might be a 42-inch waist and they want to get down to a 32, but so far away, they don't quite believe it, right? So same with me. I thought, right, how can I bridge the gap? All right, I'll do a mini podcast for my clients. I'll do more Facebook Lives or I'll do more videos. And that for me was my gateway into actually getting into doing this podcast and to build up my own confidence and belief. So I think actually just starting really, really small and building it up, build up your own belief and your confidence, trying new things, pushing yourself. And you're the prime example of that. Just helps you get to who you want to be. And each time you keep hitting a new level, a new peak. And I think that's important because everyone will see yours on the podcast and think, God, these guys are so brave. But honestly, you've probably been, if you knew actually me, I don't know about you, Simon, but I've battled with myself for so long. Like, Danny, get this shit done. And you're like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll do it tomorrow. Like a lot of people are going to feel the same right now, aren't they?
Massively. But like, look, I made it like years ago. I just started studying really successful people. And there's the biggest gap that makes people successful is from decision to action. And as soon as you can close that gap as quick as possible, you get the feedback. Was it the right thing? Was it the wrong thing? I did the same as you. I got the mic. I think I was 1.5 years, 2 years before I did it. But it took one episode. The next day I got the feedback that this is great. I need to continue doing it. But it took me 2 years to get that feedback. Whereas if I would have made the decision, took the action within 2 days, I would have got the feedback that the podcast was the right thing to do. But no, I didn't close the gap quick enough.
Yeah, I think that's important. Simon, obviously, me and you, like I said, we've known each other for years, but how do you think that you've changed as a man and a leader over the last, what's been the biggest changes in you? If somebody knew you 10 years ago and now they know you, what do you think has been the biggest changes in you?
To be honest, mate, I think, good question. I think at one point, Danny, being really honest with you, I think at one point in my life, I was showing up as someone who I wasn't. That's the biggest thing. I think I was showing up as the lead. Like I was trying to work, like I was being the leader of something that had blown up. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was trying to hold it together. do you know what I mean? So I think that's it. And I think really now for me, just being as transparent, clear, honest, like even on a podcast like this, I always say there's no whole, like just go nuts, because I feel like there's no fear or anxiety when you can just speak and openly communicate things. And like that was it. I genuinely think 6 years ago when this all, the rock bottom moment happened for me, was the slap that I needed to go, like, this isn't who you are. And really then it was 6 years from that where I committed to just go and work on myself. So my honest answer to you there, mate, is that the biggest change was really just working out who the hell I was, period. And I think from doing that, everything comes up.
100%. And for me, from knowing you, obviously the fact that right now you're so much more open and honest, you're more willing to be vulnerable. And that's something that I'm working on as a guy. Like, I struggle to be like, just to let everyone know about your flaws and to be honest and the issues that you're going through. But it's something I'm working on daily. It's something I'm improving on. The reason I want to do these podcasts is, yes, to help me, but also for me to get shit out about how I'm feeling, to actually help others. And I feel you do that really, really well. And actually seeing your podcast over the last year, the way that that's grown and the way that you're talking, you can see how much you've grown on the podcast because you've got more open, you've got more happy. You can just sense that when you're on the podcast, you just seem so much different to where you was 5-6 years ago when I initially knew you.
Because the life I was living then, mate, was a highlight reel. Everything, I was only showing up and showing people the best bits of me. And people don't connect to that. People want to see, people connect to flaws. And that was the thing that I didn't realize. For me, at that point in my mind, my ego was like, no, people, you need to be showing up as a superhuman because that's inspiring. It's not. And I think that was it. And I spoke somewhere and I used the analogy of bombs. Like for me, when I look back, I was hiding so many of these bombs about myself. They were lies, hiding so much. And I was scared shitless that someone would poke the bomb and blow it up and it would rip, like I'd be exposed. And that was that. And I just, from when everything happens, like this never happens. Like, this is why I'll speak about anything now because there's no, I can't be tripped up. There's nothing, no one can blow a bomb up on me. And that was it. And that was the biggest thing. I suffered from anxiety. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons as well. Like, because there was such a big disconnect from who I was being, from who I was like at the time. And it took like all my intuition, everything was showing up like this is the problem. You need to change it. But for me, I escaped, I ignored, I suppressed, I hid.
Like a lot of people
so many different things. Yep. But it took the universe to go, do you know what? Fuck you. We've given you enough signs. Snap. And that's what it took. It took the slap.
And if someone's feeling like you, Simon, like you did when you was anxious, what would you say to that person right now? Like, what would be your one thing that you go, right, just do this? What would be your bit of advice for that person?
Anxiety. So I think you gotta look like anxiety is a bit of it's a feedback loop that's got lost. So I think first things first, what you need to do is you need to regain control. So a lot of the time when you've got anxiety, you feel like you're out of control. Now, the one biggest thing that we have control of since day one when we opened our eyes and were brought into this world was breath. So just literally sitting and zoning into the one thing that you can control is breath. And just getting yourself back into a normal, regular breathing pattern. Like, breath is state. Do you know what I mean? When you're stressed, when you're anxious, you're breathing from your chest. It releases stress hormones instead of your stomach and your diaphragm. Have you ever heard of the saying, breathe through your balls? Like
no, I haven't.
When you're in peak state breathing, you breathe from your stomach. A lot of people have gone through how many years of their life? Like I did 26 years of that, and that was realized. But I soon realized that peak performers, high-tone businessmen can be under most stressful situations. The athletes at the starting blocks, like look at Usain Bolt, peak performer. The 100-meter race, he'd already won it. He was breathing just slow, where a lot of athletes were like, oh, anxious, tight. So with anxiety, I think the biggest thing is just zoning into one thing that you can control is your breath. Then I think you've got to be really like honest. Why did this happen? Who was I around? What environment was I in? What happened? And I really think you've got to, like, those are the questions that people need to ask. I think first you've got to ground yourself, then you've got to take control, and then you've got to rate, like, why is this happening? And then also understand that you're going to be okay, because the worst thing is with anxiety and panic attack, I suffered with them quite chronically, is the issue you've got is you lose your breath, your thought process tells you you're going to die, then your heart rate speeds up, which needs more oxygen, and then this cycle keeps going. But to stop it, you've got to reset the loop. Focus on getting the breath in, focus on getting the oxygen in, quiet the noise that's going on in your brain, because it's overthinking. And then kind of like, was it a conversation? Was it a person? Were you scared to do something? Like, what is it? And you'll always find that it'll usually come from a place of like fear or something along the lines of that. And I think Tim Ferriss uses it really well. He's like, always lean into your fears, because that's it. And I think that's kind of the process. You get stuck into that loop. That's my own individual story with it, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm exactly the same as you. I think, like I said, a lot of these, and that's why I think we both love like Joe Dispenza's work, because when I did a Joe Dispenza 3 or 4 day seminar last year, and they talk about obviously breaking the habit of yourself, how you're currently thinking and feeling and doing. Yourself. Yeah, and that's how we kind of break that, is by obviously building in different patterns, building in different routines, changing who we are. Because if you still wake up in the same state, like what you just said, thinking, feeling, fear, stress, panic, anxiety, you're going to break out of that. And I think that's why for us, we've spoke about a lot, and I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, speak about routine. Even when you are in certainty, having that element of control when you first wake up is going to help people massively to change their state of mind. And then they'll start to gradually, one step at a time, start to overcome themselves and start to feel better. But it's a gradual process, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. It's just gradual. It really is.
So what's next for you then, Simon? Like, where do you really want to go now? Like, if someone's just tuning in, it's the first time they've seen you, what's next for you? And where do you want to be in a year's time, in 2 years' time? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, to be honest with me, it's just doing more of the things that I'm doing. I love writing. I want to get this book done. The real hard thing for me is I started writing a book when I was still kind of integrating everything that was. So it kind of changed a lot. So that's something I want to get done. We've obviously got the podcast. I want to continue with the growth of that. Get the Nourish Group off the floor, which will give us events all over the world. And then my big thing really is I want to create something that I wish I had at that time. So for me, it's creating a all-round system where people can go in and it can help them. So that's kind of what the next step is for that. But to be honest, mate, they're pretty much the challenges. But I'm not doing what I usually do. Like, my old way of doing this would be impatient, stressful. Do you know what I mean? And for now, I'm just doing what I do and I'm just being okay. And I've kind of come to patience really is like one of the biggest things I've learned is like, do you know what I mean? It saves you so much stress, anxiety, realizing that everything will be okay, sort of thing. And that's the big thing. It's very easy to put a lot of pressure on yourself. Put it that way.
Yeah, 100%. So where can people find you, Simon? So obviously tell them a little bit about your podcast as well, or where they can find you on social media. And look, I would recommend every single one of you out there that's going to listen to this as well, go and check out Simon's podcast. Has really good range of guests, loads of different topics as well. I've noticed actually you've got a lot more into the relationship side of things over the last 3 or 4 months as well on the podcast as well.
Yeah, we've put in, we've had 2 big coaches on that. We had one for single guys and we had one for relationships. So it's a real good thing, mate. Like the biggest thing I've realized, like the saying, how you do one thing in life is how you do everything, really does cross the board. And we get educated on some things, but we don't get educated on us. So we're literally given this amazing machine where we're just thrown into this big world and we don't really know how it operates. Do you know what I mean? And like that's the biggest thing that I've started realizing. Like like masculinity, like sexual energy balances and all that sort of stuff, and how that crosses over into your business profiles and how it trips things over. So the show is just about like helping the whole person. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like, for me, I nailed this early into this interview, which was, we're not here to be two-dimensional creatures at all. You see this in movement, you see this in the way that we eat, you see this in the way that we think. Like when we creatures of freedom. So we need to not be confined by this two-dimensional way and just really address the full thing. And that's what the show is all about. It's business, personal mastery, relationships, health, wealth, and love. So it's called The Nourish Life Show. I pretty much hang around on social media, really, on Instagram, Facebook. So that's just Simon Hall BC, and it's all there. Still got the tags from my first ever business, just to remind me of that. That's a fun story in itself. But yeah, that's pretty much where I am. I'm pretty easy to find these days.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Simon. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for having I think we had a good chat and a good discussion. I think it actually can help a lot of people. So thank you for joining me today, mate. Hope so, definitely.
I'd love to know if, I was going to say, I'd love to know if someone's listened to this and taken away. Like, let us know what you've taken away. If they can screenshot it or put it in the socials or something and let us know what they've got from it. It's always good. I always think it's just good to see what people take from these interviews, really. 100%. So it'd be awesome to see. Hey, as well, before you go, acknowledgement. Like, you've done incredible. Like, literally, like, obviously I've been peeping in on your own journey and stuff like that. And it's amazing to see your own growth with all this stuff as well, Danny. So proud of you, mate.
Thank you, buddy. And like I said, anybody that's got anything they took away from, like Simon said, post below or tag us in it or share on social media. And thank you, Simon.
Thank you.